people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
What about Amanda Serrano? She pulled out of Paul's undercard with an injured eye. Is there any talk about you fighting her? Could that happen? I don't know.
Of course that could happen, you know. So I respect Serrano a lot. Like, wow, she's achieved for me to fight Serrano, that would be like an honor.
Yeah.
Wow, fighting someone like her. And I think she'd love that fight, you know. Of course it's an option. Do you know why? Because she's marketed, but she's obviously managed or whatever by Jake Paul, and he's all about followers and views, and he knows that I have the biggest following across all social media, and that people talk about me mainstream. So he's not dumb, and that fight would obviously be promoted very well, you know. But yeah, like it's there's all options. Like there's so many options for me, but it is about the money. Do you know what I mean? For things that aren't a world title, do you know what I mean? Like it's hard to. I'm happy to fight anyone for anything, but it has to be worth it for me.
That is Ebony Bridges entertaining the idea of a move upstairs, 2 divisions north of where she currently campaigns, from 118 up to 126 for what would be an Amanda Serrano fight. In truth, I do think it's a fight that commercially would do well. However, that doesn't make it realistic in and of itself. Currently, Amanda's name is attached to a potential Katie Taylor rematch. I don't think she has Ebony Bridges on her radar. And when it comes to Ebony,
things are kind of murky.
In fairness, she was only answering the interviewer's question, entertaining the idea of a move upstairs for Amanda Serrano. Although, even entertaining such a move for a fight that she would not be favored to win at a time where she herself is coming off a loss to Miyo Yoshida.
Revealing.
The other day, we saw Ebony Bridges entertain the idea of fighting a social media influencer that goes by the name Astrid Wet. Here and now, we see her entertaining the idea of a move upstairs for Amanda Serrano for a fight she wouldn't be favored to win.
Right.
I look at the physical condition of Ebony Bridges, who still retains a very appealing aesthetic in between fights. However, she doesn't look like she's ready for a fight or has been training for one. She actually looks a little heavy. I wonder, at this stage and at this age, how easy is she making 118 pounds? That is, how easy would it be that she's now entertaining a fight at featherweight with Amanda Serrano? Because Ebony, she is 37 years old.
Can she still get there?
What is or isn't happening in reference to a Miyo Yoshida fight, a rematch so that she can see about winning the blue belt back? What is or isn't happening with that? And can she continue to make 118 pounds at this stage and at this age? I wonder. She's between trainers now. She's not with Caldwell anymore. She went from Tibbs to Caldwell, and I don't know who's training her anymore.
I remember seeing an interview where she said she would proceed with Kelly Reese and Brian Cohen,
who are both based out of America, where Ebony is based out of the UK. So how does that work?
Just a question.
And I get the sense that Ebony Bridges' career is definitely going through some turbulence right now. We're in the rocky parts of it.
Looks like it.
I saw a tweet from her a few weeks ago that indicated Eddie Hearn and Matchroom are offering peanuts on the dollar for a women's boxing match when she was asked what's going on with her or something to that effect. That perhaps Matchroom did offer her a fight, a rebound fight of some kind, but because she didn't like the money, she didn't take it. Just something along those lines. And I think about what's going on at her around these weights, and I think to myself, perhaps she needs to bite the bullet and take that fight, whatever it is, for that money.
Why?
Because she doesn't seem to have much else going on. There is no news of a Miyo Yoshida rematch.
Right.
Very soon, her former Matchroom stablemate Nina Hughes will be traveling to Australia to take on Shernika Johnson in defense of what is her WBA title. So let's just say that the title changes hands.
Right.
And let's just say that Shernika Johnson ends up winning the fight.
A fight between Shernika, who's based out of Australia, a fight between Shernika and Ebony could be made.
Theoretically it could, but it doesn't better Ebony's chances of success in becoming a two-time bantamweight champion if she's still coming off that loss to Miyo Yoshida and she doesn't have a rebound fight in between now and then.
It's just me bouncing ideas around.
That she needs to get herself back in the winner's bracket.
The takeaway.
I think Ebony's going through a hard time right now. A real hard time right now. There's no news of a Miyo Yoshida rematch or any news of any fight of any kind.
I don't wish ill upon her. I like Ebony.
But I think she's going through a rocky time right now, and it's all good to entertain other avenues of opportunity like an Astrid Wet fight or an Amanda Serrano fight, but she's only doing so because of what she doesn't have going on. She's still coming off a loss, and her corner situation's ambiguous. She's getting up there in age.
For a boxer.
37 years old really isn't all that old for your average person, but she's not your average person. She's a boxer.
She's still fucking hot.
Yeah, but boxing-wise, it does feel like she's going through a rocky portion of her career right now, and something needs to happen. Something needs to happen now.
Hope she can work it out.
Because I'm quite fond of Ebony Bridges, but it feels like losing that Miyo Yoshida fight was a critical hit she hasn't recovered from yet. In men's heavyweight news, the latest on unbeaten up-and-comer Bakhodir Jalolov, who was supposed to be returning to action this month on the 14th. Per boxing scribe Jalol Akhmedov update, Jalolov versus Makichi fight is off. Jalolov said, "I want to inform you that my fight on April 14th has been cancelled. The main attraction will be focused on the upcoming Paris Olympics. Thank you very much to all of you who support me in any way." Bakhodir Jalolov, an unbeaten up-and-comer and an Olympic gold medalist whose name you may have heard thrown around in many hardcore boxing circles, as only hardcore boxing fans are aware of him. Though if I myself am not beaming with excitement over this talented unbeaten up-and-comer, it's because he's more of a professional amateur.
Sporting a professional record of 14 wins with no losses, no draws, 14 knockouts. He's won 14 out of 14 of his fights by way of knockout. He's been on some Matchroom shows.
In more recent years, I heard something about him jumping into bed with Top Rank, that he would be boxing as a Top Rank fighter moving forward, though that hasn't materialized into much. And if I'm not beaming with excitement over what is a talented amateur standout, a talented unbeaten up-and-comer, it's because he really is more of a professional amateur
than a professional, in the professional sense.
He won the gold in the last Olympics. He won the gold in the last Olympics, and he plans on competing in the next games, which, as you can see, takes his focus away from the pro ranks and back to the amateurs.
He's not the only one.
Estelle Mosley of La France, Olympic gold medalist Estelle Mosley, goes about her career, or at least has been going about her career, in a very similar fashion. That in the Olympics, she already won the gold years ago, and after going pro, she still seemed more focused on her amateur career than her pro career. She debuted sometime in 2017.
She hasn't really made a splash in the pros, in spite of her amateur pedigree and winning that gold medal, campaigning at a densely populated weight like 135 pounds. That's where Katie Taylor campaigns.
There are a lot of great fights to go around for a fighter with Estelle Mosley's amateur pedigree at or around that weight, but she's seemed more focused on her amateur career and continuing to add to that than her pro career, and the same rings true for Bakhodir Jalolov. His focus is getting into the next Olympics and winning more Olympic brass.
Gold.
They're not the only ones. Bakhodir Jalolov, Estelle Mosley, Beatrice Ferreira, who's currently signed with Matchroom and will be boxing for her first world title real soon. She also plans on competing in the next Olympics.
What are you getting at?
Some of these fighters that have great amateur backgrounds, you would have thought that when they went pro, they would have hit the ground running, and yet they still seem more focused on the amateurs than the pros. Why is that? And it's perhaps because they don't really come from very big boxing markets where a boxer can make a lot of money in the pros. I mean, France,
where Estelle Mosley is from,
produce boxers here and there, amateurs here and there, but it's not one of the preeminent boxing markets. Neither is Brazil when it comes to Beatrice Ferreira, or Uzbekistan when it comes to Bakhodir Jalolov. So for these fighters and the way they go about their careers, they go about their careers as professional amateurs because they figure they can make more money that way.
To some extent, they're right.
If you've seen Bakhodir Jalolov in action, you'll know that he's talented. a full-sized heavyweight of generous physical dimensions who has mobility and full range of motion, plenty of knockout power, and he's a southpaw. He could be a handful for anyone you put in front of him, and you know he has the amateur pedigree to excel at the highest levels in the pro ranks. And yet, in the pro ranks, he hasn't hit the ground running. There isn't that much buzz about him because he's otherwise preoccupied with what still is his amateur career, likely because he doesn't come from one of the preeminent boxing markets. How much money could an Uzbek make in the American market, or the British market, the Australian market, or the Japanese market, as these are the preeminent markets for a boxer to make money in the sport right now?
We know Americans are highly xenophobic.
The British market, which to me seems like a more fertile market these days for a fighter to make some money, especially a heavyweight, how are they going to take to an Uzbek, though?
And who's going to roll the dice with him?
So you more or less see what I'm getting at. I just get the sense that things won't really get serious for Bakhodir in the pro ranks until he's all but done with the amateurs. And after the next Olympic Games, then we'll see more of a push. Perhaps we'll see more of a push from Bakhodir to become a world champion and fight in meaningful fights as a professional.
Because look,
He was supposed to be fighting this month, but that fight got called off because he's more focused on the Paris Olympics.
and it just is what it is.
I think if I didn't train at all for this camp, I just come in at like 25 stone and sank maybe 15 pints of Peroni beforehand, and then the next day, go in there, what's he going to do? Jib and jab me around? Do you know what I mean? Listen, take nothing away with him, but he couldn't do anything with Derek Chisora. We all saw that fight, and let's not be eluded with him. It was 50-50 fight, could have went either way.
I've often seen many a Tyson Fury fan take Usyk's performance in the Chisora fight out of context, misrepresenting it, that it was a 50-50 fight that could have been scored either way when I didn't score it that way. And while Usyk may have got off to a rocky start while Derek still had gas in the tank, he eventually wore him down.
Slowed him down.
And he beat him. There is no question that he beat him, as there were no cries of controversy or robbery after the Derek Chisora fight. And what people are doing with that fight is deliberately misrepresenting it and taking it out of context. Any doubts left in the minds of anyone after that Derek Chisora fight likely would have been allayed after not one, but two Anthony Joshua fights where he so clearly beat Anthony Joshua, and we can all agree that Anthony Joshua is a better, more decorated fighter than Derek Chisora, right?
Right.
And that he is a better grade of fighter than Derek Chisora, right?
Right.
You're stuck on a Chisora fight as if you're in any way, shape, or form built like Derek Chisora or fight like Derek Chisora.
You don't.
And for talking to me about a quote-unquote close fight that Usyk had with Chisora, you just had a close fight with Francis Ngannou. That wasn't that long ago. What you're trying to do is scrub that.
Erase it from people's memory by bringing up ancient history.
Maybe Usyk didn't look good in the Chisora fight. Not at first. But you definitely didn't look good in the Ngannou fight, and that was more recent.
Moreover, Ngannou never had a professional boxing match. So you tell me what's worse.
I wasn't in a hurry to address Tyson Fury's seemingly impromptu press conference in Manchester yesterday because I knew exactly what kind of nonsense I would have to address. You're bashing him for how he looked with Chisora. How did you look with Ngannou a few months ago?
Why did you cancel the post-fight press conference? Were you embarrassed?
You should be. But now you want to stand on your soapbox and talk about how you could beat Alexander Usyk with no training when you're so clearly training, you're so clearly shedding the excess, shedding the weight, and it's not because of how easy you think this is going to be.
It's not often you see a fucking heavyweight in a fat suit, a sweatsuit.
Why are you wearing one, Tyson Fury? You trying to fit in your skinny jeans?
Tyson, I was watching an interview with Alexander Usyk the other day, and he said that Vladimir Klitschko has reached out and given him some advice. But
That'd be anti-advice, how to lose to the Gypsy King. How can Vlad, my old pal Vlad, give anybody any advice? Because he would have used it himself, wouldn't he, if he had any advice or any idea how to beat me. It was an absolute one-sided boxing lesson I give to old Vlad. And I believe Vlad was a very good champion, just like this guy is.
The best of his generation.
And I said, didn't I? I said, if I can't beat old Vlad, I must be useless. And I'll say it again. If I can't beat Usyk, I'm no good, clearly. That's your headline. If Tyson Fury can't beat Usyk, Tyson's no good. End of. I'm not going to pull any punches. It is what it is. If I can't beat Usyk, I'm no good. Say I'm no good. And then I'll get a rematch with him and say I'm no good again if I lose again. What more is there to do? But if I beat him, I beat another man. Great. Fantastic. On to the next one.
Now, even though Vladimir Klitschko and Alexander Usyk are both Ukrainian nationals, that's the only likeness in those two situations, as Vladimir was already a long reigning champion who I feel grew complacent over time, having suffered several losses already. You let Fury tell the story, and he acts like he did a demolition job on Vladimir Klitschko, like the demolition job Corey Sanders did many years before that. No, you eked out a points decision.
He won, but it wasn't impressive.
It wasn't exciting. The both of yous barely threw any punches.
And this is why I don't like to subject myself to this stuff that Tyson Fury says.
The thing about that situation in this one is I don't think Vladimir was too accustomed to facing heavyweights that are eye level to him, guys with some size of their own. I don't think Vladimir was accustomed to that.
Tall guy, long guy, fidgety guy, managing the distance. Usually, he's the one who would manage distance with his jab, but Tyson Fury did do a good job of managing distance on him.
Rendering Vladimir hesitant and tentative. I don't think he was used to that. It's different with Usyk.
How?
Usyk is accustomed to being the smaller guy in the ring. He's accustomed to that. He was smaller than Chaz Witherspoon, smaller than Derek Chisora, smaller than Anthony Joshua and Daniel Dubois. So if he's smaller than Tyson Fury,
That's nothing new.
he was noticeably smaller than Joe Joyce in that semi-pro fight that they had. He was noticeably smaller, and he still gave him a boxing lesson that Usyk is more accustomed to dealing with a fighter that may be bigger than he is than Vladimir was accustomed to dealing with a fighter that may be bigger than he is.
There's nobody better talking on the stage than
Definitely not. But I just want to say, AJ's a big fat sausage. For sure.
There we go. We're live.
Shall I say a big useless sausage?
You can say whatever you want, Taz.
Yeah.
This is your stream.
AJ, I know it's been rattling your cage. You big useless sausage. I want to beat this guy, and you've been beat twice off him. Get up. Slink. I like that for another insult.
That was Tyson Fury's response to Anthony Joshua's recent comments that Anthony does take Fury's insults towards him. He does take them to heart. He does keep them in mind.
And that was his response, that AJ's a big fat fucking sausage.
Need I remind you, when Tyson Fury was morbidly obese and treating his nose to that booger sugar, he himself admitted that when Anthony Joshua told him, "Get fit, you fat fuck," it affected him.
Some context, please.
This was all because Tyson Fury was talking shit. This was while Tyson Fury was away from the sport. He starts calling Anthony Joshua a paper champion once Anthony starts collecting all the belts that were dispersed. He was talking out the side of his face while he was temporarily retired, so Anthony told him, "Get fit, you fat fuck." He was only responding to Fury.
He was responding to Fury.
Because Fury was talking him down. Only so that when Fury ramps up his comeback, he starts talking about how he used Anthony's comments as fuel.
He rattled you.
That affected you the same way that he says your comments affected him. Affect him. You're peas in the pod. And you're not going to get those insights from any of the talking heads over at Queensbury over their sycophantic laughter at what is Tyson Fury's tired old shtick.
Big Dasa, big sausage, you know how it goes.
We all do, which is why I wasn't in a hurry to address this press conference that he had. We all know what he's going to say, we all know what we're going to hear, and we all know it doesn't matter anyway.
You've got a job to do.
Can you do it? Because the last time we saw you, you got knocked on your ass by a novice. How are you going to deal with an expert?